My stomach lurches. A part of me wants to return his hostility with interest. What right does he have to be so aggressive? He's the one suspected of a crime, not me. Another part of me wants to avoid any confrontation at all and apologize. I feel confused, uncomfortable, stuck. For years now, I've been fascinated by the question of why so many of our public disagreements go so badly. People with differing views seem to find it increasingly hard to argue productively, instead becoming mired in acrimony or stuck in a grinding neutral gear. Then I noticed that the same problems apply to our private lives too, whether it's parents arguing with their children or workplace quarrels. Our inability to disagree well seems to act as a roadblock to progress. Shouldn't we be able to express conflicting views without getting into toxic rows or fruitless stalemates? What's getting in our way? Unable to answer these questions to my satisfaction, I started to do some research. I spent time reading about the principles of good intellectual debate as established and refined by thinkers over thousands of years, from the ancient philosophers onwards. Principles like assume good faith, get to know your opponent's argument as well as your own, don't argue with straw men. It was wise and enlightening stuff, but something nagged away at me. Like healthy eating or exercise, it seemed much easier to know what you ought to do in disagreement than to do it. I grasped the theories, but the moment I got into a row with my boss or my wife or a stranger on social media, theory went out of the window. I came to think of productive disagreement not as a philosophy so much as a discipline and a skill. People are not logic machines. We are egotistical, proud, impulsive, insecure, and needy. Rather than being a pure exchange of opinions and evidence, an argument is nearly always entangled with how we feel about each other. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Emotions can help us fight our corner or make us sympathetic to another's view. But emotions can work against healthy disagreement too. Primordial instincts kick in, clouding our minds and distorting our behavior. Unspoken tensions simmer under the surface of the politest disagreements, sometimes boiling over into anger, sometimes leading us into sullen withdrawal, but other times pushing us towards truthfulness and intimacy. When we disagree, we bring the whole of ourselves to the conversation, head, heart, and gut. The trouble with most treatises on debate or argument is that they only focus on the first. I wanted to address all three. That's why I persuaded an interrogation expert to let me role-play the part of a police interviewer. Most of the disagreements you or I have in our everyday lives do not obviously resemble criminal interviews. Our arguments might be about the best way to run a project at work, or whether it's okay to eat meat, or which of us is drawing too heavily on the joint account. But they do have something fundamental in common with the one I had with Frank Barnett, and it's this. They are, at least in part, related to how we feel about each other. Underneath every disagreement, a wordless negotiation over a relationship is taking place. If we don't settle that, the conversation doesn't stand a chance. The most difficult disagreements can be transformed into productive conversations by paying close attention to this hidden dimension. Some people do this for a living. We can learn a huge amount from those who manage highly charged, high-stakes adversarial conversations in the course of work. Police officers, hostage negotiators, diplomats, and others. I've found remarkable similarities between the challenges faced by these experts and those faced by any of us in a marital row, political debate, or workplace dispute. By combining this lived expertise with ideas and research from communication science and cognitive psychology, I've been able to identify a universal grammar of productive disagreement, available for any of us to apply to our lives. In the course of doing so, I've not only role-played the part of a criminal interrogator, I've travelled to Memphis to watch cops being trained in how to handle tense encounters on street corners, where the prospect of violence is never far away. I've talked to divorce mediators about how they get two people who can barely stand to be in the same room as each other to come to an agreement. I've asked therapists about how they talk to patients who resist every piece of advice they are given, and I've learned how hostage